Imagine a colorful plane coming to pick you up. Then imagine the longest flight of your life and landing. That was the golden age of Iran Air. Unstoppable, ambitious, and proud. Those same jets are now rotting in a desert junkyard. They are fulfilling their duty to keep the dying fleet in the air. If you bought 2 used planes, you'd become famous overnight. And the rules were like those of the old days. What turned a country's flagship airline into a symbol of isolation? The average age of the planes is 29 and rising. Iranian airlines used to be very famous. Now they are struggling. Currently, engineers are using the black market for parts. But in the past, there were ideas that could have revolutionized aviation. European skies are closed. Flights from the West are banned. The route map that once stretched from London to Kuala Lumpur is now limited to a few regional flights. However, what makes this story interesting is this. Iran wants to regain its former power and is working hard to do so. But after the Russia-Ukraine war, other countries imposed sanctions on Iran. Despite the devastating attacks in June 2025, they continue to fly, even though they have been expelled from all international alliances and security rankings. Is this denial or resistance? This situation is very risky. Today we are taking an in-depth look at one of the world's most politically isolated airlines, because sometimes a country's struggles can be fully revealed through the story of an airline. A record was about to be broken at night at exactly 35,000 feet, but it couldn't be broken. Mechanics are operating planes older than most of their children under harsh projector lights. Above all, there is one rule that applies to everyone: safety. Consider this. Here's an interesting fact. The average age of people using Iran's aircraft is around 30. This may seem outdated to people, but it is still accepted by everyone in the world. The backbone of the fleet of 37 aircraft listed in official records for research purposes consists of Airbus A300-600s, produced in the late 1990s, 100s that most airlines retired a decade ago, and ATR-72s, which an engineer dubbed hope and duct tape. In my opinion, only 17 people on the plane are doing their real jobs, while the others are not doing much. 4 months ago, the A330-200 aircraft arrived, and the country suddenly came into the spotlight on the world stage. These aircraft are among the youngest in Iran's fleet. However, the interesting part begins here. Iran Air continues to reject Chinese or Russian aircraft. Why? Believe it or not, the pilots are familiar with Airbus and Boeing systems. Despite the threat of extinction, they remain committed to Western technology. Do you know about marathons? Old planes were used for this purpose. Believing in a different future, they ordered 12 A380s. Pilots now see every landing as a time negotiation. This situation was perfectly expressed by an experienced technician. We must also maintain the aircraft. The reason is that if it is not done for a long time, we cannot fly, and it will be lost among the memories. Iran Air's daily morning departure provides the answer to this question, assuming, of course, that the parts were found overnight. Any airline manager would be horrified by this figure. Iran's inflation this year is not very high, but it is right in the middle. Imagine managing an airline where all parts, fuel, and international transactions are priced in dollars, which you cannot access. This reads like a tense timeline. Some countries had imposed sanctions on Iran, so flying planes was also prohibited, and in June 2025, US bombings followed Israel's attacks on nuclear facilities. The economic shock is devastating. However, the details tell the real story. Isolation is the biggest factor in preventing planes from flying. If you don't have fuel for your planes, it's going to be very costly. Think about this illuminating fact. Iran Air is not included in the 2025 airline safety rankings. There are many reasons for this, but the biggest one is that it is closed to the outside world. They are now like the ghosts of aviation. They exist, but they are invisible to other countries. There are now hidden risks on every flight. Black market parts imply that their origin is uncertain. The skies are no longer a problem for Iran, because other countries do not recognize them, and it is difficult for them to find suitable locations. While Iran Air is trying to save itself, its competitors are at ease. Every flight involves the lives of 200 people, and it's like watching a heavyweight boxer fight with one arm tied behind his back. Other countries are excluding you. How did you feel when children excluded you from playing? It's like that. When diplomatic smuggling is required for every spare part, Iran Air's isolation is guaranteed by your own government's actions. These are not theoretical questions. Today is Tuesday. Open Flight Radar 24 now. Search for Iran Air. What you won't see reveals the whole story. Iran Air used to be a well-known company that flew everywhere, and now it can't fly. Iran used to be a company that brought the West and the East together. Today, it has been reduced to a few domestic flights. The current situation is very difficult. Worn-out A319s are used intermittently on domestic routes like Mashhad-Shiraz. Globally, they are tied to Istanbul, Jeddah, and Dammam. After exactly 40 years, a company returned to Iran, and everyone was surprised. But the real tragedy is this: the infrastructure is still in place. Trained crews, agreements, and slots are waiting for a political miracle that will never happen. No one believes in these ambitious plans for expansion into Asia anymore. They only exist in press releases. Iran has now banned flights to the UK and the US. Every time Iran cancels a route, people become anxious and costs increase. Dreams are postponed, businesses are divided, and families are separated. Eventually, you give up trying to go somewhere you can't fly to. Geography becomes psychology. An operations manager described his role as managing the withdrawal. Iran can no longer fly to many places, and the number of destinations is dwindling. Will they expand again? That's not the question. The question is whether they can sustain the remaining few aviation activities. If you don't grow, you die. And Iran's aviation map is struggling to breathe. Sometimes the worst tragedies can be measured in paperwork. An order for 80 Boeing aircraft worth $16.6 billion is sitting somewhere at Iran Air's headquarters. 50 737 MAX 8 aircraft, 1,000 1570-30s, and 1,000 1577X aircraft were part of this massive order. Iran's golden age was on the horizon, but it was halted by war. A monument to what could have been in the golden age. Iran is flying the 747 SP. The Flying Palace was an engineering marvel. It was specially designed for ultra-long-haul prestige routes. Even seasoned New Yorkers would stop to watch it land at JFK. The airline had to compete with more than just international airlines. They were being outpaced by them. Then new targets emerged that would once again disrupt them. With great excitement and promises of reclaiming their throne, 12 A380 orders were placed. Bold claims were made by everyone, and Iranian authorities were receptive to the idea. Aviation journalists were thrilled about the impending return of Iran Air. So what happened instead? Ambitions always ended up in the dust, and sanctions are being imposed, which is increasing the burden on the state. The Boeing deal was legally impossible, and the A380s were never produced. Every year, these restoration plans are updated in press releases that no one reads, turning them into fiction. Iran now wants to be modern and compete with other rivals. They are planning routes to closed airports, negotiating with imaginary partners, and dreaming of planes they will never own. This is either a dangerous delusion or admirable determination, or perhaps both. A retired captain summed it up this way: "We have gone from writing aviation history to becoming aviation history. The saddest part is that the knowledge is still there. Iran's world-class engineers and pilots are stuck in third-world conditions. Perhaps tomorrow or the day after, competition will surge, no one knows. While competitors use 2025 technology, Iran Air is hoping for 2016 orders. There is now a chasm. One airline, three futures, and no guarantees." Let's be brutally honest about Iran's activities in 2025. If it doesn't contribute to the war, I think Iran will rise even more. It sounds great, but there's a problem. Due to delivery delays, the first new aircraft won't be delivered until at least 2028. By then, competitors will have advanced another generation. It's like entering the race after everyone else is finished. The second scenario is a challenging process. Nothing changes. Fewer people and planes open the door to major breakdowns. And growth becomes impossible. You either stay in place or get stuck. Collapse is the third scenario. Conflicts in the region intensify. Airspace closes completely. The last international routes disappear. Iran Air becomes a domestic airline, then a historical airline. This has happened before. Think of Sabina, Swiss Air, and Panama. Everyone makes mistakes, but Iran shouldn't make them now. It's familiar, but not because it's good. Iran Air is a master at surviving on state subsidies, teetering on the brink of bankruptcy and stubbornness. But the harsh reality is this: if you don't change your mind, you're behind and you can't move forward. The lack of new aircraft means that the chances of a comeback are dwindling every year. The managers continue to speak confidently. Competing with other rivals is now very difficult for Iran. But be careful. The speeches in 2016, 2018, and 2020 are the same. The words are still the same. The reason is that nothing has changed. Is hope enough to keep an airline afloat? Iran Air is currently testing this theory. The experiment continues. There are currently 17 aircraft left in Iran, and this is Iran's future. They need to be used correctly. Iran's journey from grandeur to survival has been charted by us. From mechanics searching for parts on the black market to the 747 SPS sweeping the Pacific. From A380 dreams to reminiscing about old A330s as if they had won the lottery jackpot. Iranian airlines are no longer what they used to be, meaning they can no longer be considered airlines. And this may disappoint you. They are transforming into something more complex. The human cost is reflected in the mirror. Every day it reminds us that politics and physics are incompatible partners, and that engineering is a monument. Creativity under difficult conditions. If you can make something work, that's an achievement, and Iran needs to grow slowly and take steady steps. However, miracles and victories don't create airlines. All they do is delay the inevitable. The question that troubles Iran Air employees, local passengers, and aviation enthusiasts watching from afar remains unanswered. Was this crash intentional or an accident? Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. Perhaps the question is more important than the answer. Currently, former Iranian pilots are attempting to fly an old, outdated aircraft. They will examine systems managed through improvisation. Initially, they will fly along routes established by habit. They will work at airports where the airline's history has opened doors that its current reputation cannot. And they will do the same tomorrow. Is 35,000 feet a record or a normal situation? Have you personally witnessed Iran's transformation? Write your story in the space below. Subscribe now to discover the most unlikely scenarios in aviation. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most fascinating flights are the ones that seem impossible to achieve.